All right, let's talk about, and we're going to start out of town and then we're going to reel it back into town. Stories breaking everywhere. Big incident last week at the end of the week, Lakers home game. LeBron James looks behind the bench, and behind the bench, Stephen A. Smith from ESPN is sitting there.
This is great.
And LeBron walks around the bench, stands right in front of him, and lectures him. Don't talk about my son, Bronny James, the way you're talking about him. Leave my son alone. And that's like taking a match and throwing it towards a gasoline can because Stephen Smith is going to do this. So Stephen A. had made some comments that LeBron James had put his son in a terrible position by kind of mandating that the Lakers draft him, having him on the roster, and dropping hints, if you don't draft my son, I'll leave and opt out as a free agent, etc. And he's kind of blaming LeBron for the crisis that he created for Bronny.
Yes.
So Stephen says, I'm going to continue to talk about what I feel, what I think. LeBron can say what he wants. We don't have to be friends, etc., etc. I wish he had done it in private, rather the whole world to see. Okay, that's the risk you take. If you're going to run your mouth, you have to answer to the people that you're running your mouth about. Then Bronny James goes on social media, and Bronny tweets, some of us can ball. And by the way, there are some who can't ball to just talk about ball. As is Stephen A. Smith. Just has no idea what the hell he's talking about. Now, Bronny is averaging 1.9 points per game, shooting 25% from the floor in the NBA. He's playing better in the NBA G League. When he plays, it's not on a consistent basis. He's averaging 13 points per game. So you got LeBron versus Stephen A. And by the way, your people will have to call his people to make an appointment to talk to Stephen A. Smith because he's not earning minimum wage. He just signed a contract, 5 years, $100 million to stay at ESPN.
Wow, good for him.
They're paying $20 million a year to watch him do this all the time, talking about anything and everything in the world of sports.
Man, you're like born like 30 years too lately.
No,
that could have been you.
No, Stephen A. is great. I've known him. I've interviewed him when he was a beat writer in Philadelphia covering the NBA. He knows hoops. He talks hoops. He really knows his stuff. But he kind of lost me. I sat at an airport a couple of years ago, and he was on. He's always on.
Yeah.
And he's running this dialogue about the Patriots and the playoffs and Belichick, and we're going to do this, so they're going to do that. And he starts quoting song and verse about their wide receiver group. And he goes on and on and on, and he's talking about two guys that have been on injured reserve all year. And I'm saying, you're bluffing your way through this. This is all bull crap. I know these guys aren't playing, and you're telling everybody watching ESPN, Stephen A. is that these are the guys to watch in this next playoff. Holy cow. So I say, if he's BSing the population with that, what else is he BSing that he doesn't know about? There's probably a lot.
Well, he's getting into politics now.
Well, so what, you want to vote for him?
He said that there are people that want him to be the Democratic nominee for president.
You'd probably vote for him.
No way.
I don't know. The last person you voted for, that hasn't worked out very well. So that being said, Stephen A. has earned mega money right for him. It's amazing. Everybody's got an opinion. Charles Barkley, TBS, inside the NBA. Of course, he signed a contract extension to stay. They're going to be sublet. The Inside the NBA group will now become part of the ESPN package when they get the NBA rights next season. Charles Barkley called everybody at ESPN, his new teammates, a bunch of idiots. Barkley just going on and on and on. He says, you people nationwide who are telling everybody across the nation the Lakers, by virtue of the Luka trade, just saved the NBA. He said, have you watched a Cleveland Cavalier game or an Oklahoma City Thunder game? You guys are a bunch of idiots. And Barkley just went off on everybody at ESPN.
Just terrible.
Oh, yeah, just firing shots. Fox TV saying goodbye to a really good man, Jimmy Johnson. I had the chance to interview him twice. Classy, smart, 27 years as a lead studio analyst with Howie Long and everybody else they plugged in there on their NFL panel. He's retired at age 82. He's moving back to Key West, Florida. Jimmy Johnson, he was a great coach. Jerry Jones should thank him every year for what he did there, and obviously what Jimmy did it with the Miami Hurricane. Jimmy Johnson has retired. And that takes us to local media. San Diego Union-Tribune's got a new sports editor, Ryan Finley, replaced Jay Posner. Finley's done a good job. The Sunday section of the UT is kind of cool. The way it's laid out, they cover a ton of stuff. They're down in personnel. Everybody from a newspaper standpoint is down in personnel. I understand what that industry has gone. They do a phenomenal job with the Padres. I think Kevin Acee and Jeff Sanders do a great job. Tom Krasovic has been flipped into being a columnist. Bryce Miller, who's fought some real health problems, he's been a columnist for an extended period of time. Nick Canepa writes once a week. But they're missing the mark because there's a bunch of things that they don't cover, and I don't understand why they don't cover it. I understand you don't do it on a beat basis, but there's no reason a major market newspaper should totally ignore a team that's gone 12-2-2. Totally. No game stories, no feature packages about the San Diego Gulls. How the hell are you ignoring hockey? Secondly, the mystique and the uniqueness of the San Diego Sockers. Absolutely zero coverage of this team that's won what? 17, 19 indoor soccer championships? No feature packages at all? Why? I don't understand that. I understand you're excited about SDFC, and rightfully so, but there's other teams out there that I think deserve coverage. And you can cover Point Loma, Nazarene, and all the others, but I think you need to cover really good franchises, even though they might be minor league or they might be, quote, semi-pro, and they haven't done it. So I'm really disappointed that aspect of the Union-Tribune, because these people, notably the San Diego Gulls, deserve coverage. When you're 12-2-2 and you got all these young guys scoring goals and some veterans they brought in, that hockey team deserves to be covered in some form or fashion, if not on a beat basis, but at least on a feature story basis or a notes column basis. If I were king, that's what I would do. So I'm telling the Union-Tribune what to do. One final comment. Sports talk radio is not what sports talk radio used to be. The Fan, 97.3, the Padre flagship station. Painful. Odyssey, the group that owns them, used to be known as Entercom, laid off over 100 people last week. They chopped their midday talk show. Craig Elsten, soccer boy, Annie Heilbrunn, Annie the cheerleader, as I call them, were let go. Financial cutbacks. This is what corporate radio has become. You're talking to a victim of corporate radio. All my friends have been a victim of corporate radio. Do you know how many really good people in broadcasting are on the street right now because of corporate radio? Clear Channel and what iHeart did to our stations, what Cumulus has done, and now what Entercom, which has become Odyssey, has done. They put so many good people out of work. It's terrible. Craig Elsten got cut. Annie got cut. I didn't get along with them. The same management people that terminated the coach, John Quintera. Sorry, I just can't agree with putting that many good people and impacting their families out because there's some bottom line that you got to answer to for some corporate guy up top who does not know what he's doing. So I felt really badly. Craig and I didn't get along. Soccer boy, that's okay. I liked Annie Agot. She's been victimized by all these layoffs. Before that it was Bally Sports and Fox Sports, and she was at the UT, and she kind of got victimized of where they are. But at the end of the day, I just totally disagree with what the corporate management has done. Do you have any good people or free agents right now in San Diego from the sports talk world that we were part of? The kind of station you could put on the air with the guys who've been let go. Here's the brown envelope. Sign it. Get your stuff out of the office by 5 o'clock tonight. That's terrible. Just absolutely terrible. That's my opinion. All things on the media. Go ahead. You want to talk about LeBron and Bronny? And no, you're a legacy guy. You're not going to cover that. Talk about Stephen A. and Charles Barkley, Jimmy Johnson, your newspaper, and all of us who are victims in sports talk radio.
Yeah, so there's a lot in there. Now, first of all, I love this overall topic of covering sports media, because I remember like 30 years ago, there was a column in the Union-Tribune
every Friday
that would cover what it would talk about Hacksaw and Jim Rome and talk about Leitner and what he was doing on television news and everything. It was cool. I like this side of the business. For me, it's interesting. But let's talk. I'll go in backwards order so we get the local guys first. 97.3. I mean, Craig Elsten has been around forever. I've always kind of liked him. Annie is very likable, but it just seems to me that, everything's going podcast. It's the radio as a young people really don't listen to the radio much anymore. So I imagine we could get all these street free agents and put together the best radio team of all time. But I wonder if anyone would listen.
Well, they would listen, as witnessed by who's participating in our podcast Monday and Thursdays. Phenomenal. But is there money to be made? That's the big issue. But at the end of the day, you need local radio and need good talent on local radio to be successful on local radio. The Padres flagship station is successful because they pay a lot of money to broadcast Padre baseball, but once they're out of the baseball ratings, their ratings are on the floor. Well, the other sports station has negligible ratings, and that's on a 50,000 watt signal. If I was a program director of 760 and I had a station on a big signal that has 0.5 rating, like 23rd in the market, I think I'd shoot myself. That comes back to management's decisions of putting the right people on the air in the right situation, which means you got to pay them. And that's not happening, at least in local sports talk radio. You compare sports talk radio at this hour to where it was when we invented 690 and then what we did when we reinvented and took part in 1090. It is so different now. And if you don't have good product, you're not going to have good ratings. You don't have good ratings. You don't make revenue. It's just a vicious circle. Like I said, there's a lot of street free agents out there that if I were king, I would start a station. I would start a station with Hacksaw and the coach, John Quintero. And I'd start a station with Scott Kaplan and Billy Ray Smith and Dave and Jeff. I mean, there's a whole pile of good people you could build a station from, but you obviously need to invest and you need to be on a big signal. And if you got the play-by-play rights, that helps it. So 97.3 is good in season. When they're out of season, no, not so ever. And in terms of Soccer Boy and Annie Cheerleader, they took a midday show that had an 11 share with John Quintero, and they terminated John. When those people were let go, they had a 3 share.
Oh my God!
From a content standpoint. So that's out of season. I understand it's out of season, but you do good sports talk, you should be able to knock down good numbers across the board, and they did not. So I feel bad that they got let go. I felt bad that Quintero got booted out, and the people 97.3 don't like me. I don't give a damn.
Everyone's got an opinion on you, whether it's positive or negative. But I'll tell you what, there are a lot of these street free agents who are doing their own podcasts. And there's a lot of other guys like me that are just podcasters that have talked about sports. I'd imagine there might be a way to kind of bring all these resources together, and maybe an advertiser can make a single buy that would spread across this whole ecosystem of local sports journalists. There's maybe a business opportunity there.
So you want to be the guy who syndicates a network. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, well, why not? I'll get the chance to work with you, maybe others as well. But I just want to go down the list. But by the way, with sports talk radio, I will listen to the Padre games and the Aztec games when I'm driving religiously. But when I'm like driving around otherwise, I'm usually listening to podcasts or sometimes just regular news.
And throw into that Sirius XM's specific channels.
Oh, that too.
The baseball home plate channel, the NFL channel. I listen to all that plus the hockey channel. So
yeah, that's what I do is I have Sirius in my car, and I've got a collection of, national news and sports news that are on that rotation. But, I mean, the only time I listened to 760 was on Saturday. I remember I had to go and grab a bite to eat, and it was drifting into the beginning of the Aztec basketball game. And so I listened to like the first 5 minutes of the game driving in my car.
You come home and watch it on TV. Everybody's watching it.
Well, yeah, but it was just the timing of everything that worked out for dinner, and I went out and got a bite. So, but it's rare, to listen on regular radio. The whole world has changed.
Exactly.
Now, as far as the UT is concerned, it's interesting that you say, well, they got a new layout, and I can picture that.
Sunday sports section is really kind of cool, I think, but the rest of the week it's lacking, and you're ignoring these teams that I think you should be doing something for.
Well, it's like, ignoring your local AAA baseball team. I mean, that's a legitimate sports franchise that should be covered. But I subscribe to the UT, but the digital only. So I don't get the impact of the layout and the paper and all of that. But there's certain guys. I mean, I'm a big fan of Mark Ziegler. I think he does a great job.
Exactly.
And I was interested to see what he was going to do because he covered the Aztec game, and I would assume he covered San Diego FC. But I noticed that Kirk Kenny was on the FC beat. Right. But I'm wondering if Ziegler is going to cover San Diego FC in the MLS.
Well, he's got an international sports background. He covers the Olympics. I mean, He's gifted. He's really gifted.
Yeah, he is.
But they don't have a lot of manpower to spread out to cover everything.
But Aztec Nation just thinks that Mark Ziegler is like a Debbie Downer, because he's always looking at the glass half empty. But I still like him. He does a really good job. And then as far as the rest of these, Barkley is fantastic. He speaks his mind. That's why we love him. Stephen A, I'm a huge fan of. And I saw that interchange with LeBron, like out on the court. And I'm just thinking, LeBron, you brought all this on yourself, by insisting that your son play in the NBA with you and all of this. I mean, Stephen A is just reporting on it, and granted, he's got his own style of reporting, but LeBron
is commenting on it.
Yeah, but it's okay, and LeBron is sometimes very thin-skinned about a lot of things in the NBA.
If you want to solve the problem, you solve it privately. Now, Stephen A would say, oh, LeBron confronted me in the hallway outside the locker room and said, blah, blah, and he would then make it a public issue.
Well, so would you.
That's okay. So that's where we are. But I don't know if LeBron bought it on. I mean, God, we're wasting so much time talking about the 12th guy on the Lakers roster who never is going to play. So why is this a big issue, except that Stephen A made it an issue, so LeBron made it a bigger issue by doing it in public, and now Stephen A's talked about it again.
And now Bronny is feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Yeah, those of us who ball know, and those of us who don't ball talk about ball.
Well, Stephen A, didn't he play like at North Carolina A&M or something like that? I think he got a cup of coffee at Division I basketball.
God, they're paying him $20 million a year to say what he says. What's that number for ESPN? Maybe I should call.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, I doubt it. Anyhow, all things sports. Fans Forum chat box is open. Feel free to jump on board. This podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. There are 9 locations to serve you. You got projects, they got materials. You want ideas, they'd be glad to help you. Only thing I can recommend, just go to the website, Dixieline.com. See all the things that Dixieline Lumber has to offer to you.